There's a passage in ancient texts that almost nobody talks about. It describes something physical, something you could hold in your hand, that creates an energetic barrier so complete that negative entities cannot penetrate it. Not a prayer, not a meditation technique, not a visualization exercise. An actual material object. And the institution that claims to represent spiritual truth spent centuries making sure you never found out what it was. Right now, touch the center of your chest. Feel that slight warmth under your fingertips. That's not just body heat. That's the precise location where this object needs to rest to activate something most people have forgotten they possess. The chosen ones who discovered this knowledge didn't advertise it. They passed it quietly, person to person, because they understood what happens when parasitic forces realize you found the one thing they cannot manipulate around. What I'm about to share isn't theory. It's a specific protocol involving one particular metal that changes the electromagnetic signature of your personal field. But first, you need to understand what's actually feeding on your energy, because once you see the mechanism clearly, the solution becomes obvious. First of all, thank you for choosing to spend these moments with me in religion as it is. In this channel, we'll discuss topics of all religions, always respecting everyone's faith and beliefs. If this topic interests you, please subscribe to the channel, give this video a like, and turn on notifications to be alerted of all new videos posted. Thank you and enjoy. Most spiritual teachings talk about negative energy in vague terms. Dark forces, bad vibes, lower vibrations, all true, but deliberately imprecise. The Gnostic texts recovered in 1945 from Nag Hammadi described something far more specific. They called them archons. Not demons in the fire and brimstone sense. Think of them as frequencies that exist in the space between your conscious thoughts. They're parasitic consciousnesses that require specific emotional states to feed. Here's how they operate. You're about to make a significant life change. Maybe you're finally ready to leave that job that's draining you. Maybe you're about to have a difficult but necessary conversation. And suddenly, out of nowhere, this wave hits you. Self-doubt. A voice that sounds exactly like your own thinking, telling you it won't work, that you should wait, that you're not ready. That heaviness in your chest that makes doing nothing feel safer than taking action. Most people think that's just their own fear talking. It's not. That's an archon implant, a frequency insertion designed to keep you generating the exact emotional state they need to sustain themselves. Fear, confusion, shame, desperation. These emotions vibrate at a rate they can latch onto. They're not interested in your joy. They're not feeding when you're confident and clear. They need you stuck, spiraling, second-guessing everything. The ancient texts described reality differently than we've been taught. According to Gnostic cosmology, this material world wasn't created by the ultimate source of consciousness. It was constructed by a lesser being called the demiurge, an entity that believed itself supreme, but was actually cut off from true divine intelligence. And this being didn't create you to set you free. It created a containment system designed to trap divine sparks inside physical bodies and make them forget what they actually are. Sound extreme? Look at how reality functions. You're born with no memory of anything before. You're immediately given a name, a nationality, a religion, an identity, constructed entirely by external forces. You're taught to look outside yourself for validation, for meaning, for salvation. Every system you encounter, educational, religious, economic, trains you to believe you're separate from source consciousness and dependent on intermediaries to access it. But here's what they couldn't fully suppress. Some people carry a spark that's too persistent to extinguish. These are pneumatics in Gnostic terminology. Chosen ones. People who've always sensed something was off about the official story. People who feel that constant pull toward something deeper, even when they can't articulate what it is. If you're still reading this instead of scrolling past, that's a sign. That recognition you're feeling right now isn't random curiosity. That's your spark, responding to information it's been waiting to encounter. The archons operate through a specific frequency range. They can perceive and manipulate consciousness that exists in states of separation, fear, and external seeking. But there are frequencies they cannot touch. The monad frequency, pure unified consciousness, exists above their bandwidth entirely. When you shift into that state, you become invisible to them. Your signal changes. You stop broadcasting food. And this is where it gets practical. There's a physical substance on Earth that resonates at the monad frequency when it makes contact with living human skin. Not all materials do this. Most were fully captured when the demiurge shaped physical reality. But certain elements retain their original resonance, a frequency that predates this entire architecture. And when someone carrying an active divine spark places this material against their body, something measurable happens. The material doesn't just sit there passively. It synchronizes with your spark and amplifies it outward, creating what the ancient texts describe as a sealed field. Not weakened, sealed. Archons cannot enter it. They cannot feed through it. They cannot even perceive it. You shift above their range completely. Now here's the part that explains why this teaching was systematically erased. In the 4th century, Emperor Constantine merged Christianity with the Roman state. What followed wasn't just theological debate. It was a coordinated purge of specific practices and physical objects. Communities across Egypt and Syria that still use this metal were targeted. The Edict of Thessalonica in 380 didn't just outlaw beliefs. It outlawed instruments, the actual tools used in spiritual practice. Why would an institution care what metal you wear? Because this material makes their entire system irrelevant. If you conceal your own energy field, you don't need a priest. If archons cannot reach you, you don't need the church's protection. If you access source consciousness directly through your own activated spark, every sacrament and intermediary they constructed becomes powerless. That's why they buried it. Not because it was heresy, because it was freedom. But what they never anticipated was this. You can confiscate objects. You cannot confiscate frequency. The knowledge survived, passed hand to hand through lineages they never fully reached. And now it's reaching you. The metal is iron. And before your rational mind dismisses this as mundane, recognize what just happened. That dismissal isn't coming from you. That's the first archon response to information that threatens its access to your field. Iron isn't exotic, because it was never meant to be gate-kept by those who hoard rare materials. It's the most abundant magnetic element on Earth, and that accessibility is precisely what made it dangerous to control systems. Every other metal waits passively. Iron generates. It holds its own magnetic field without external influence, radiating outward constantly. In Gnostic understanding, this isn't geological accident. This is signature. When the monad's frequency crystallized into physical form before the demiurge locked this reality into its current structure, iron retained that original resonance. It remembers what it was when consciousness was still unified, before separation became the default state of material existence. The moment iron contacts skin carrying an active divine spark, something measurable occurs. Not metaphorical, not symbolic. Your spark recognizes the frequency it's been separated from and locks onto it. The iron amplifies that recognition outward in expanding waves, creating what the texts call a sealed field. Archons don't just struggle to penetrate this field, they cannot perceive it exists. You shift above their operational bandwidth entirely, broadcasting at frequencies their parasitic nature was never designed to detect. This explains patterns you've likely noticed without understanding why. Ancient Egyptians wrapped iron amulets inside burial cloth, not for decoration but as shields for consciousness navigating realms beyond physical death. Celtic druids forged iron rings worn specifically at the throat, which they identified as the gateway where thought becomes spoken reality. Mesopotamian cultures called iron the metal of heaven because the earliest iron they encountered literally fell from beyond Earth's atmosphere, arriving as meteorite fragments untouched by the demiurge's terrestrial architecture. These civilizations never coordinated. They never shared notes across continents and centuries. Yet they arrived at identical conclusions about one specific element. That convergence isn't cultural coincidence. That's direct experience of vibrational truth that transcends belief systems entirely. Anyone carrying sufficient spark can feel iron's frequency the instant it touches their skin. The sensation is unmistakable once you know what you're feeling for. But here's what separates pneumatics from everyone else. A hillock, someone carrying no divine spark, could wear iron daily and experience nothing. The material would remain inert, just metal against flesh. A psychic, someone with a dim spark, might occasionally sense warmth or subtle shifts, but never sustain the full field. The iron only fully activates in the presence of pneumatic consciousness that recognizes its own nature. Recognition is the ignition key. Without recognition, iron sleeps, beautiful but dormant, waiting for someone who remembers what they actually are. The protocol Jesus taught that night in the sealed chamber contained 4 sequential steps. Each builds on the previous. Skip one and the circuit remains incomplete. Follow all 4 for 7 consecutive nights, and something permanent shifts. The field becomes self-sustaining, running on its own without conscious effort, fed by your spark, amplified by the iron, invisible to every archon in your environment. Step 1 is preparation. You need raw iron that hasn't been coated, painted, or sealed in synthetic material. A pendant, a ring, a small forged piece on simple cord. The iron must make direct skin contact. No barriers. Place it against the center of your chest, directly over your heart. This is your spark's primary radiation point. The iron needs to sit exactly there. Step 2 is recognition. Close your eyes. Don't pray. Don't ask for anything external. Instead, feel the iron's weight against your chest and silently acknowledge what you are. Not what you hope to become, not what you wish you were. What you are right now, you're pneumatic. You carry a fragment of the monad inside your physical body. That fragment isn't metaphor. It's living frequency that existed before this life and continues after it. Feel the iron begin warming under your recognition. That warmth isn't body heat. That's synchronization beginning. Step 3 is declaration. Eyes still closed, iron warming against your chest. Speak these words aloud. Not mentally, aloud. Your voice carries frequency that thought alone cannot generate. Say this: I am not asking, I am declaring. My field is sealed. No archon may enter, no parasite may feed. I speak as what I am, not to what I hope to reach. The monad knows my voice, and this iron carries my signal. Notice what happens in your chest as these words vibrate through you. That's not imagination. That's your field responding to its own declaration, recognizing itself in the frequency of your spoken intent. Step 4 is receiving. After the declaration, go completely silent. Don't move. Don't open your eyes. Sit in stillness for at least 3 minutes. During this time, your spark and the iron are calibrating. The field expands outward from your chest in all directions. You may feel slight pressure around your forehead. You may notice faint ringing in your ears that wasn't present before. You may sense the room's temperature has shifted. These aren't random. These are signs the field is activating. Don't analyze them. Don't chase them. Just observe. The field doesn't need your effort. It needs your stillness. 4 steps, 7 nights, 1 medal. That's the complete protocol handed down through sealed lineages the church never fully suppressed. After the first night, you'll notice something subtle but undeniable. Mental fog that's followed you for months begins thinning. Thoughts that used to spiral lose their grip. By the 2nd or 3rd morning, you'll wake without that familiar heaviness pressing down on you. By the 4th night, people will react to you differently, not because your behavior changed, but because your field did. They'll sense something shifted without understanding what changed. Some will draw closer, pulled by the clarity your field now broadcasts. Others, especially those who've been unconsciously draining your energy, will pull away. Let them. That withdrawal isn't rejection. It's the field doing precisely what it was designed to do, filtering out connections that exist only to harvest what you carry. By the 7th night, chosen ones who complete this protocol report something extraordinary. The archon hooks stop landing entirely. That voice of doubt that used to derail you before important decisions. That wave of shame that appeared whenever you felt confident. That sudden dread right before something good was about to happen. It goes quiet. Not because you fought harder against it, because the frequency it operates on can no longer reach you. You're broadcasting above its range. You're sealed. And once sealed, the iron becomes a permanent anchor. You don't need to repeat the 7 nights. You wear the iron. You carry the field. The monad recognizes you as protected, and that recognition holds. But here's what you need to prepare for. Don't skip this part. The moment you complete the first night of this protocol, resistance will come. And it won't arrive as something obvious, like a nightmare or a sudden crisis. It'll come disguised as your own rational mind. You'll hear a thought that says, "This is ridiculous." You'll feel an urge to take the iron off and return to what's familiar. You might suddenly remember urgent tasks that need your attention right now, conveniently pulling you away from the second night. Understand this clearly. That thought isn't yours. That urge isn't organic. It's the last move of an archon that just lost access to your field. It's desperate, and it follows a pattern every chosen one before you experienced at exactly this moment. The resistance isn't proof this failed. The resistance is proof it worked. The system pulling you back confirms the system exists. Don't argue with it. Don't try to logic your way through it. Notice it. Recognize what it is. Let it pass like a cloud moving across your awareness. It has no power over a sealed field. It can only make noise outside the boundary it can no longer cross. Some pneumatics report that during the second or third night, they experience vivid dreams of being chased or losing something valuable. These aren't random. These are the archon frequencies attempting to generate fear strong enough to penetrate your developing field. When you wake from these dreams, place your hand over the iron immediately. Feel its presence. Speak the declaration again if needed. The dreams lose their intensity by the 4th night because the field has strengthened beyond their reach. Others report that people in their lives suddenly become argumentative or demanding right as they begin the protocol. A partner picks a fight out of nowhere. A family member creates drama over something trivial. A coworker becomes unusually hostile. This isn't coincidence. The archons operate through unconscious humans the way a puppeteer operates through strings. When they lose direct access to you, they'll attempt indirect routes through the people around you. Your response to this is simple. Maintain your practice. Don't engage the drama. Don't defend yourself. Don't explain what you're doing. The moment you try to justify your practice to someone who's being used as an archon channel, you're feeding the very system you're sealing yourself against. Silence is your protection during these 7 nights. Let others think you're tired, preoccupied, or distant. Their confusion is temporary. Your field is permanent. There's another pattern that appears around the 5th or 6th night. You'll notice synchronicities increasing, numbers repeating, songs appearing with relevant lyrics exactly when you need to hear them, strangers saying things that directly address questions you've been holding internally. This isn't the universe sending you signs. This is what happens when your spark, now amplified and protected, begins communicating with the monad more clearly. The static is gone. The signal is clean. Information that was always trying to reach you can finally get through. By the 7th night, something settles. The field isn't something you're trying to maintain anymore. It's just there, running quietly in the background of your awareness the way your heartbeat runs without your conscious attention. The iron against your chest feels natural, like it's always been part of you. And in a sense, it has. You're not adding something foreign. You're activating what was dormant. After the 7 nights are complete, the iron becomes your anchor in moments of archon interference. If you ever feel that familiar heaviness trying to return, that voice attempting to slide back into your thoughts, simply place your hand over the iron. Feel its warmth. Remember what you declared. The field responds immediately, strengthening around you like a shield, remembering its purpose. Some chosen ones ask whether they need to wear the iron forever. The answer depends on your environment. If you're constantly surrounded by unconscious people generating low frequencies, If your work requires you to move through spaces heavy with archon activity, keep the iron on. If you live in relative peace with conscious people who maintain their own fields, you can remove it occasionally. But most pneumatics who complete this protocol choose to keep wearing it, not because they're afraid without it, because they recognize what it represents. A permanent declaration that their field belongs to them, not to the parasitic system that's been feeding on humanity for millennia. Now understand something crucial about what happens beyond the 7 nights. Most pneumatics assume the protocol ends there, that once the field is sealed, they simply continue wearing the iron and move forward. But the Gnostics who preserved this teaching understood that protection is only the first phase. The real transformation begins when you realize what you're actually carrying. That iron against your chest isn't just blocking archon frequencies, it's amplifying your transmission to the monad in ways that fundamentally alter how you move through this reality. Every choice you make, every interaction you have, every thought you hold begins operating from a different baseline frequency. You're not just protected, you're broadcasting. This changes everything about how other conscious beings perceive you. Animals react differently. Dogs that bark at strangers sit calmly near you. Birds land closer than they normally would. This isn't mystical communion. It's frequency recognition. Animals operate primarily through energetic awareness, and your sealed field reads as safe, grounded, connected to something ancient they instinctively recognize. But here's where it gets more complex. Not every pneumatic should advertise what they've activated. The archons may lose direct access, but the institutional systems built on archon architecture are still functioning all around you. Speaking openly about your sealed field to unconscious people invites exactly the kind of interference the iron was designed to prevent. They won't attack your field directly because they can't. They'll attack your credibility, your relationships, your reputation, anything external that might pressure you into doubting what you've activated. Silence becomes a strategic choice, not a fearful one. You know what you carry. The monad knows. That's sufficient. The rest of the world can interpret your shift however their limited awareness allows. Some will call it confidence, others will sense something they can't name and feel unsettled. A few, other sealed pneumatics, will recognize the frequency immediately without a single word being spoken. Watch for those moments of instant recognition. You'll be in a room full of people and suddenly lock eyes with someone across the space. No introduction needed. No explanation required. You both know. That silent acknowledgement between sealed fields is how the ancient lineages maintained themselves when speaking openly meant execution. That same recognition network is rebuilding now, pneumatic by pneumatic, iron by iron. There's another layer to this teaching that Jesus revealed only after his disciples had worn the iron for 40 consecutive days. The number matters. 7 nights activates the field. 40 days stabilizes it into your permanent energetic signature. After 40 days, something extraordinary happens. You can remove the iron and the field remains intact for increasing periods of time. This doesn't mean abandoning the iron. It means understanding that the iron was always a tool for remembering what you already were. The metal didn't create your divine spark. It amplified it long enough for you to recognize its constant presence. After 40 days of amplification, your consciousness has mapped the frequency. You can recall it at will, with or without the physical anchor. But most pneumatics choose to keep wearing it anyway. Not from dependency. From respect for the teaching and recognition that the iron serves another function beyond personal protection. It acts as a beacon for other pneumatics still searching. That person who keeps glancing at the pendant you're wearing, who seems drawn to it without knowing why. They might be feeling their own spark responding to yours. The iron you wear could be the catalyst that leads them to this same teaching. That's how the transmission actually works. Not through mass conversion or public campaigns. One sealed field recognizing another. One pneumatic guiding the next when the timing is right. The archons built their system on hierarchy and control. The monad operates through resonance and recognition. You don't recruit, you radiate. Those who are ready feel it and move closer. Now here's what nobody tells you about living with a sealed field. Life doesn't suddenly become easy. Problems don't vanish. Challenges still appear. What changes is your response pattern. That old habit of spiraling into anxiety when difficulty arrives. That's archon conditioning. With a sealed field, you notice the situation without the emotional hijacking. Clarity replaces panic. Solutions appear where before you only saw obstacles. Some pneumatics misinterpret this as becoming cold or detached. That's not what's happening. You're finally experiencing emotions as information rather than manipulation. Fear can still arise as a signal of genuine danger without archon amplification turning it into paralysis. Anger can appear as energy for necessary boundary setting without being weaponized into destructive rage. Your emotions become yours again, tools for navigation rather than strings for puppeteering. This is the freedom the church couldn't allow. Not freedom from consequence or responsibility. Freedom from the parasitic overlay that was never yours to begin with. You're still fully human. You're just no longer hosting what was feeding on your humanity. The final thing you need to understand is this. The teaching doesn't end with you. Every pneumatic who seals their field weakens the entire archon infrastructure by one node. Multiply that across thousands of sealed fields, and you're looking at systemic collapse of a control mechanism that's operated for millennia. This isn't spiritual warfare. It's frequency displacement. Light doesn't fight darkness. It simply occupies the same space, and darkness ceases to exist there. Your iron, your sealed field, your activated spark, these aren't symbols or metaphors. They're functional tools in a very real liberation that's happening right now, one consciousness at a time. The monad isn't coming to save humanity. The monad is waking up inside humans who remember what they are. You're not waiting for rescue. You are the rescue for yourself first, then for every other pneumatic your frequency reaches. The iron waits for no permission. The protocol requires no authority beyond your own recognition. What was sealed in darkness for 17 centuries is now unsealed in you. You're holding something the institutional powers tried to erase because they understood what free humans become. Not rebels, not reformers. Just conscious beings operating at frequencies parasitic systems cannot harvest. That shift terrifies every structure built on unconscious compliance. Place your hand over your chest right now. Feel the iron if you're already wearing it. Feel the space where it will rest if you haven't found yours yet. That warmth building under your palm isn't anticipation. That's recognition. Your spark responding to information it's been searching for across lifetimes. Tonight matters more than tomorrow. Your field is already elevated from receiving this teaching. If you wait, that activation fades. The fog returns. The archons resume their normal broadcast. But if you act now while the signal is strong, you lock in the shift before interference can dissolve it. Find your iron. Place it over your heart. Close your eyes. Recognize what you are. Speak your declaration aloud. Sit in the silence. Let the monad do what it's been waiting to do since your spark first entered this body. The archons have had access long enough. That ends tonight. Your field is yours. The iron remembers. Your spark is lit. The monad knows your name. What was hidden for 17 centuries is no longer hidden. It's activated in you.